Own your thoughts. Master your mind before it masters you. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. Your mind is speaking right now. Even as you read these words, it's narrating, commenting, questioning. That voice, always present, rarely quiet, is shaping how you experience everything. But here's the truth. You are not that voice. You are the one listening to it. That single realization separates those who live in reaction from those who live in power. Most people never question the stream of thoughts flowing through their minds. They assume every fear must be true, every doubt must be valid, every judgment must be justified. But the mind left untrained becomes a trickster, brilliant at creating problems, terrible at solving them. Your thoughts are not harmless. They are architects of action, mood, belief, and behavior. They build your days, shape your identity, and chart your future. As Jim Rohn once said, stand guard at the door of your mind. This book will show you how. You'll learn to recognize the voice in your head, to challenge it, to direct it. You'll practice catching spirals of anxiety before they crash. You'll begin shifting from passive witness to active commander, not with force, but with presence. You don't need to silence your thoughts. You need to own them. This is not a book about positive thinking. It's a book about mental leadership. Because when you master your mind, you change your life, not by altering the world around you, but by reclaiming the power within you. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The voice you didn't know you were following. There's a voice inside your head that narrates everything. It critiques you in the mirror, whispers doubts before big moments, replays conversations on loop, and spins futures that haven't happened. It sounds like you. It uses your vocabulary, your memories, your fears. So you trust it. You follow it. You think it's you. But it isn't. That voice is a stream of thoughts, habits of interpretation built from past experiences, cultural conditioning, old pain, and scattered fears. It's not evil. It's not broken. It's just untrained. And untrained thoughts are like unfiltered water. They carry whatever's upstream. Most people don't know they're following this voice. They just feel anxious, indecisive, overwhelmed. They blame the world, their schedule, their upbringing, even their personality. But rarely do they stop to question the quietest, most influential force in their life, the inner narrator. That voice shapes every reaction, fuels every emotion, and sets the tone for your day before you leave your bed. It tells you who you are, what's possible, and what to fear. If left unchecked, it creates a life lived on defense, dodging threats that don't exist, shrinking from potential, settling for safety. The shift begins with awareness. Not judgment. Not resistance. Just noticing. Start by listening. Noticing the tone, the patterns. Is the voice urgent? Is it cruel? Is it always predicting worst-case scenarios or reminding you of past failures? Does it ever sound like someone from your past, a teacher, a parent, an ex? Awareness breaks the spell. When you observe a thought instead of merging with it, you create space. In that space, choice becomes possible. Instead of reacting to every mental impulse, you can pause. You can respond. You can lead. That's the beginning of mastery, not control, but clarity. You don't win by silencing the voice. You win by separating your identity from it. You realize that just because a thought appears doesn't mean it's true, helpful, or worthy of your attention. Imagine standing on a busy street corner watching traffic go by. That's your mind. Cars rush in every direction, some loud, some broken, some beautiful. You don't have to chase every vehicle. You don't have to jump in every car. You can stand still. You can observe. This is the foundation, becoming the watcher. From here, everything changes. You don't need a quiet mind to find peace. You need a clear seat at the head of the table. You are the one who decides which thoughts speak and which get dismissed. With time and attention, the loudest voices lose their grip. New ones rise, calmer, wiser, aligned. That's what it means to own your thoughts. Not to control every mental twitch, but to lead them like a skilled conductor leads an orchestra. You choose what plays, what rests, and what doesn't belong in the arrangement at all. The voice in your head isn't your enemy. It's a survival tool doing its best with outdated programming. Your job is to update the software. The first line of code? Awareness. Stand back. Listen closely. The real you, the one who watches, notices, and chooses, is already awake. Now, it's time to take the reins. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of them. The inner voice shapes emotion, reaction, and identity more than most realize. Awareness is the first step to reclaiming mental sovereignty. When was the last time you believed a thought that turned out to be completely false? Take 5 minutes today to sit quietly and simply observe your thoughts without judgment. Write down 3 patterns you notice. Chapter 2. You are not the first thought, you are the second. A thought appears, I'm not good enough. Another follows, why do I always mess things up? And before you know it, your shoulders tense, your chest tightens, and your day starts sliding off course, all because of 2 sentences that never asked permission to exist. Most people live in the grip of their first thought. It flashes across the mind like lightning, triggering emotion, story, and reaction. But the first thought isn't your fault. It's often automatic, shaped by years of repetition, fear, trauma, or social wiring. You didn't choose it. It just showed up. The power lies not in controlling the first thought, but in choosing the second. The second thought is where your awareness meets decision. It's where the observer steps in and says, wait a minute, is that true? Is it helpful? Do I want to believe this? That gap between the first and second thought is where mental strength is built. It's the mental gym where resilience is trained. The longer you stay in that space, the more power you gain. The more reflexively you respond, the more control you give away. There's no shame in having negative, insecure, or irrational first thoughts. Everyone does. The mind's first job is survival, not clarity. It scans for threats, both real and imagined. That's how it's wired. The mistake is not in having the thought, it's in handing it the steering wheel. Viktor Frankl wrote, between stimulus and response there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space is the second thought. It's not flashy, but it's everything. A woman receives tough feedback at work. Her first thought is, I'm not cut out for this. But then she pauses. Her second thought steps in, this is feedback, not a verdict. I can use it to grow. That shift, barely a breath long, alters her day, her mood, her confidence. A man sees his friends succeed while he's struggling. His first thought, I'm falling behind. But then he breathes. His second thought arrives, their journey isn't mine. I'm building something different. That moment of reframing stops the spiral before it begins. You can't always stop the storm, but you can decide where to set your anchor. Second thoughts aren't about delusion. They're about deliberate direction. It's not pretending things are fine when they aren't, it's choosing not to feed thoughts that shrink you. It's responding with clarity instead of reacting with fear. Over time, this practice rewires the brain. Neural pathways begin to favor reflection over reactivity. The old, automatic thoughts lose their volume. New ones take their place. You begin to default to calm instead of panic, hope instead of dread, curiosity instead of judgment. It starts with a single pause. A breath. A whisper of awareness that says, I see that thought. But I don't have to become it. The first thought is the wind. The second thought is the rudder. One you can't control. The other you can. This is the quiet power of mental mastery, not the absence of noise, but the ability to redirect it. To pause. To choose again. To step into the space where freedom lives. That space is always available. The question is, will you enter it? First thoughts are automatic. Second thoughts are chosen. Power lies in the space between stimulus and response. The second thought is your moment of direction, clarity, and leadership. What recurring first thought in your life deserves a new second thought? Today, when a negative or reactive thought arises, pause. Write down your second thought, the one you choose, and speak it aloud. Chapter 3: Mental Loops and Invisible Scripts. Some thoughts don't just visit, they move in. They become familiar refrains, quietly repeating themselves day after day, year after year, until they fade into the background. These are mental loops, recurring thoughts that play on repeat like a scratched record. And because they're so constant, they begin to feel like truth. But repetition isn't reality. It's just rehearsal. Every person walks around with a set of invisible scripts. These scripts are not written by logic or fact. They're written by memory, emotion, and meaning. A teacher's harsh words at age 10. A breakup at 21. A failed pitch. A parental silence. One moment becomes a line. That line becomes a belief. And that belief gets rehearsed until it becomes a script. Scripts sound like, I'm not creative. I always mess things up. No one ever stays. I'm bad with money. I can't focus. I don't belong here. They masquerade as personality traits, but they're really old conclusions, written by a younger version of you, reacting to something painful and trying to make sense of it. The trouble is, these scripts shape what you notice, how you act, and what you expect. They become cognitive filters. You walk into a room and interpret silence as judgment. You get a compliment and translate it as pity. You sabotage good opportunities because they don't match the script you've rehearsed. This is too good to be true. Most people don't recognize these loops because they feel normal. But normal doesn't mean healthy. It just means familiar. The mind seeks consistency. It wants what's predictable, even if it's painful. That's why we cling to limiting beliefs. They give us an identity to hold. Changing them isn't just about new thoughts. It's about letting go of who we've believed ourselves to be. But here's the truth, scripts can be rewritten. Loops can be broken. The first step is exposure. You must bring the unconscious pattern into conscious light. Notice when a thought feels rehearsed. If it arrives with practice rhythm and a sense of inevitability, it's likely a loop. Write it down. Give it a name. Dissect it. Then ask, who gave me this script? Is it mine, or someone else's? When did I start believing it? And most important, does this belief serve the person I'm becoming? Most scripts fall apart under honest questioning. They collapse not because they're weak, but because they were never meant to last a lifetime. They were built to protect you, not define you. A man once believed he was terrible at public speaking. That belief came from one forgotten middle school presentation where he froze. 20 years later, he still declined every opportunity to speak. Not because he lacked skill, but because the loop had never been challenged. Once he reframed the experience, one moment doesn't define a lifetime, he began speaking. Not flawlessly, but freely. It's not about perfection. It's about authorship. You don't need to silence every script at once. You just need to notice one and choose differently. Every time you interrupt the loop, you weaken its grip. Over time, the brain learns a new rhythm. And with it, a new identity. You are not the scripts you've memorized. You are the author of the next line. And it starts with a choice, to stop letting the past write your future. The pen is in your hands now. Mental loops are repeated thoughts shaped by past emotion, not present truth. Scripts often come from old pain and unexamined moments. You can challenge, rewrite, and replace them with conscious beliefs. What's one invisible script you've been repeating, and how has it shaped your behavior? Identify a recurring negative loop today. Write it down. Then rewrite it into a new, empowering statement you'll rehearse instead. Chapter 4: The Lie of I Can't Help It. The phrase slips out like a shrug. I can't help it. It's used to justify snapping at someone, procrastinating, spiraling into worry, or quitting something halfway through. On the surface, it sounds honest, even helpless. But underneath, it's something more dangerous. It's a quiet surrender. I can't help it is the anthem of autopilot. It's the mind giving itself permission to run unchallenged. But the truth is, it's rarely about whether you can help it. It's about whether you've trained yourself to. The brain loves efficiency. It creates shortcuts for everything: habits, responses, assumptions. These shortcuts become grooves, like trails worn into the ground by repeated footsteps. When emotion hits or pressure builds, you default to the groove. That's not failure. That's programming. But programming isn't destiny. It's pattern. And patterns can be interrupted. When you say I can't help it, what you're often saying is this is the only groove I know. But what if you could carve a new one? What if your instinct to withdraw could be paused? What if your tendency to spiral could be interrupted mid-spin? That power exists. But it starts with ownership. Take anger. A thought appears, they don't respect me. Your body reacts. Tension builds. You snap. Then comes the excuse, I can't help it, I just lose it sometimes. But zoom in closer. Between the thought and the outburst, there was a space. A flicker of choice. Maybe it lasted only a second. Maybe you missed it. But it was there. Now imagine training yourself to catch that flicker. To pause. To breathe. To choose a new response, not to suppress the anger, but to guide it. That's not weakness. That's mastery. Neuroscience backs this. The brain's plasticity means it can rewire itself through focused effort. Each time you override an automatic reaction, you weaken the old circuit and strengthen a new one. Over time, what once felt uncontrollable becomes manageable. What felt instinctive becomes optional. Consider the metaphor of a horse and rider. A wild horse bolts at the slightest sound. But with consistent training, it learns to pause, wait, respond. It's not that the horse loses its power, it learns where to place it. Your mind works the same way. I can't help it only holds weight if you've tried, truly tried, to respond differently. Most haven't. Most rehearse the same story every time the trigger hits. But you are not most people. You are here to lead your thoughts, not be led by them. Reclaiming that power requires noticing when you give it away. Start with your language. Every time you hear yourself say I can't help it, replace it with I haven't learned how to help it yet. That small shift rewires your identity from victim to student, from powerless to practicing. It's okay to not have it mastered. What matters is refusing to label automatic patterns as unchangeable truths. You don't need superhuman willpower. You need a moment of presence. A breath. A choice to not ride the groove that's always been there. Every time you choose differently, even for a second, you are building a new trail, one that leads not just to new behavior, but to a new identity. You can help it. You just haven't trained that muscle yet. The training begins now. I can't help it is often a story, not a fact. Automatic reactions are learned grooves, not fixed traits. Presence and repetition can rewire responses over time. Where in your life do you use I can't help it as a pass, and what would change if you didn't? Today, when you feel yourself reacting on autopilot, pause. Take one deep breath and choose a different response, even if it's just silence. Chapter 5. Thoughts don't need your permission to appear. You don't ask for most of your thoughts. They just arrive. One moment you're brushing your teeth. The next, you're reliving an argument from 3 years ago. Or imagining losing everything. Or rehearsing a fantasy that doesn't match your current life. No one invited these thoughts. No one gave them clearance. And yet there they are. This is the nature of the mind. It's a generator, not a gatekeeper. It creates continuously, past, future, fear, fantasy. It scans, it imagines, it warns. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it yells. And most of the time, it doesn't ask whether what it's offering is helpful, true, or even relevant. This doesn't make your mind broken. It makes it alive. Too many people waste energy trying to suppress or control their thoughts. They believe mastery means only thinking positive things, or having a calm, pristine inner world. But that's not mastery. That's misunderstanding. Thoughts don't need your permission to show up, but they do need your participation to stick. A thought arises, I'm not good enough. That's not the problem. The problem is attaching to it, feeding it, believing it, letting it build a case. A thought has no power until you engage with it. It's like a match, harmless until struck. What matters is how quickly you recognize it. Do you mistake the thought for a fact? Do you let it spiral? Or do you label it, pause, and let it pass? Meditation teaches this skill well. Sit long enough in stillness, and you'll see thoughts rise and fall like waves. Some are loud. Some are ridiculous. Some are heavy. But all of them pass, unless you chase them. Unless you grab hold and build a story around them. The goal isn't to eliminate thoughts. It's to stop letting them hijack your awareness. Imagine your mind as a sky and your thoughts as weather. Storms come and go. Clouds drift in and out. But the sky remains. You are not the passing clouds, you are the sky that holds them. No matter what appears, you are still there, watching. Training yourself to become that sky takes practice. It starts by naming what shows up. Noticing the pattern. Creating space. You can say, there's a thought about failure. Or, that's a worry loop. This subtle shift from I am anxious to I notice an anxious thought is the beginning of mental liberation. It's easy to believe you're failing at thought work if your mind is still noisy. But noise doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're awake. It means you're watching. And the more you watch, the less power those thoughts hold. Remember, thoughts appear without your permission. But whether they stay, grow, or guide you, that's up to you. A bird can land on your head. You don't have to let it build a nest. Over time, you'll start to spot thoughts faster. You'll see them before they hook you. And when they do hook you, you'll find your way back with less shame, less drama, and more grace. That's what progress looks like. The mind will never be silent. But it can become a place of clarity, not chaos. You can build a life where thoughts don't own you. Where they come and go, and you remain centered, grounded, watching. Because you are not the thought. You are the thinker. And that is enough. Thoughts arise without your control, but staying with them is a choice. Mastery is not silence, but non-attachment. Naming and noticing thoughts breaks their grip. What kind of recurring thought shows up without your permission, and how do you usually respond? Today, when an uninvited thought appears, don't resist it. Simply name it, observe it, and let it pass without engagement. Chapter 5. Thoughts don't need your permission to appear. You don't ask for most of your thoughts. They just arrive. One moment you're brushing your teeth. The next, you're reliving an argument from 3 years ago. Or imagining losing everything. Or rehearsing a fantasy that doesn't match your current life. No one invited these thoughts. No one gave them clearance. And yet there they are. This is the nature of the mind. It's a generator, not a gatekeeper. It creates continuously, past, future, fear, fantasy. It scans, it imagines, it warns. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it yells. And most of the time, it doesn't ask whether what it's offering is helpful, true, or even relevant. This doesn't make your mind broken. It makes it alive. Too many people waste energy trying to suppress or control their thoughts. They believe mastery means only thinking positive things, or having a calm, pristine inner world. But that's not mastery. That's misunderstanding. Thoughts don't need your permission to show up, but they do need your participation to stick. A thought arises, I'm not good enough. That's not the problem. The problem is attaching to it, feeding it, believing it, letting it build a case. A thought has no power until you engage with it. It's like a match, harmless until struck. What matters is how quickly you recognize it. Do you mistake the thought for a fact? Do you let it spiral? Or do you label it, pause, and let it pass? Meditation teaches this skill well. Sit long enough in stillness, and you'll see thoughts rise and fall like waves. Some are loud. Some are ridiculous. Some are heavy. But all of them pass, unless you chase them. Unless you grab hold and build a story around them. The goal isn't to eliminate thoughts. It's to stop letting them hijack your awareness. Imagine your mind as a sky and your thoughts as weather. Storms come and go. Clouds drift in and out. But the sky remains. You are not the passing clouds, you are the sky that holds them. No matter what appears, you are still there, watching. Training yourself to become that sky takes practice. It starts by naming what shows up. Noticing the pattern. Creating space. You can say, there's a thought about failure. or that's a worry loop. This subtle shift from I am anxious to I notice an anxious thought is the beginning of mental liberation. It's easy to believe you're failing at thought work if your mind is still noisy. But noise doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're awake. It means you're watching. And the more you watch, the less power those thoughts hold. Remember, thoughts appear without your permission. But whether they stay, grow, or guide you, that's up to you. A bird can land on your head. You don't have to let it build a nest. Over time, you'll start to spot thoughts faster. You'll see them before they hook you. And when they do hook you, you'll find your way back with less shame, less drama, and more grace. That's what progress looks like. The mind will never be silent. But it can become a place of clarity, not chaos. You can build a life where thoughts don't own you. Where they come and go, and you remain centered, grounded, watching. Because you are not the thought. You are the thinker. And that is enough. Thoughts arise without your control, but staying with them is a choice. Mastery is not silence, but non-attachment. Naming and noticing thoughts breaks their grip. What kind of recurring thought shows up without your permission, and how do you usually respond? Today, when an uninvited thought appears, don't resist it. Simply name it, observe it, and let it pass without engagement. Chapter 6. Training the mind is training attention. Where your attention goes, your life follows. Not your talent, not your intentions, your attention. Every outcome begins with focus. Every habit, every mood, every reaction depends on what your mind is paying attention to. And yet, attention is the one thing people give away the fastest. They scroll, click, react, and shift, pulled in a dozen directions before breakfast. The result is a scattered mind that feels busy but rarely anchored. The modern world is designed to hijack your attention. Notifications, headlines, algorithms, they all compete to pull your focus away from where it matters and place it on what's urgent, loud, or meaningless. This doesn't just waste time. It weakens the muscle of awareness. Training the mind starts with reclaiming your attention. You can't control every thought, but you can choose where to place your gaze. Attention is like a flashlight in a dark room. Whatever you shine it on becomes your reality. Shine it on anxiety, and fear grows. Shine it on progress, and growth appears. The light doesn't change the room, it changes what you see. The mind will suggest dozens of things to focus on: regret, fear, distraction, fantasy. But you get to choose what stays in the beam. This is the foundation of mental strength, selective attention. It means learning to redirect, again and again, from the tempting noise back to what matters. It doesn't happen once. It happens 100 times a day. Consider a basketball player at the free throw line. The crowd roars. The noise is everywhere. But their focus is narrow: ball, hoop, breath. That's trained attention. The chaos doesn't disappear. It just doesn't win. The same applies to your mind. You can't mute the world. But you can build the discipline to return your gaze to what serves you. Attention is also tied to emotion. When you feel overwhelmed, anxious, or discouraged, ask yourself, what am I focusing on right now? In almost every case, the feeling is a reflection of focus. And when you shift your focus, the emotional weather changes. This doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means choosing which ones deserve your full attention. Not every worry deserves a meeting. Not every thought deserves a stage. You decide what stays on the agenda. Meditation, journaling, breathwork, these are not mystical practices. They are exercises in attention. They teach you to come back, over and over, to the present. To what is real. To what is in your control. Each return builds strength. Each return trains the mind. Think of attention like a lens. Left unfocused, it's blurry and erratic. But when you slow down, breathe, and align your focus with intention, everything sharpens. Your actions become cleaner. Your choices become clearer. You respond instead of react. This is the work. Not fighting every thought. Not fixing every feeling. Just noticing, pausing, and guiding your focus back to where it belongs. And when your focus lives in the present, your power lives there too. You don't need a perfect mind. You need a trained one. One that knows where to look, even when the world pulls at every angle. That's attention. And attention, over time, becomes clarity. Clarity becomes action. And action becomes identity. This is how you shape a mind that serves your life instead of stealing it. Not by force. By focus. Attention determines your experience more than thought itself. Selective focus is the foundation of mental training. You build strength not by resisting distraction, but by returning to presence. Where does your attention most often go, and what impact does that have on your mood or energy? Today, set a timer for 5 minutes. Practice directing your attention to one simple thing, your breath, a sound, or a word. When your mind wanders, gently bring it back. Chapter 7. Inner dialogue is a daily decision. Every day, you speak to yourself more than anyone else does. Thousands of internal messages pass through your mind, from quiet judgments to running commentary, doubts, affirmations, worries, reminders. This voice becomes the soundtrack of your life. But most people never question what it's saying. Inner dialogue is not random. It's learned. It reflects what you've absorbed from the world, repeated to yourself, and rehearsed until familiar. The tone might be harsh or hesitant, mocking or motivating. But here's the truth, it is not fixed. It is chosen. And more than that, it is trained. The quality of your life often mirrors the quality of your inner dialogue. If your inner voice is filled with criticism, you move through the world defensively. If it's filled with compassion, you move with courage. If it's vague and scattered, your direction will be too. Your outer life is shaped not just by what you do, but by what you say to yourself while doing it. Most people think their internal voice is simply reactive, a reflection of how the day is going. But in reality, it's a shaper, not just a mirror. It tells you what's possible, what's dangerous, what's worth pursuing. And those suggestions become internal laws, even if they're rooted in fiction. A student says, "I'm terrible at math," every time they struggle. Soon, they stop trying altogether, not because the skill is unreachable, but because the inner voice declared it unreachable. The thought becomes a wall, not a window. The more it's repeated, the more it feels true. But inner dialogue can be rewritten. And the first step is intention. You don't need to turn your inner world into a motivational speech. But you do need to become deliberate. Start by catching the tone. Is it sarcastic? Shame-based? Anxious? Then shift from critique to curiosity. Instead of "Why do I always mess this up?" try "What's making this feel hard right now?" That subtle difference changes everything. Words carry energy. Even silent ones. The brain listens to what you say, even in your head, and responds with emotion. Speak to yourself like someone you're responsible for guiding, not punishing. Repetition matters. The brain wires through consistency. That means you won't see change from saying one kind thing to yourself. You'll see it from building a new rhythm day by day. And in time, that rhythm becomes your default. There's nothing passive about inner dialogue. Every phrase is a choice, conscious or not. And if you don't program your mind intentionally, it will run on inherited scripts, outdated fears, and reactive language. You become what you rehearse. And if you rehearse defeat, you'll perform it. But if you rehearse calm, possibility, patience, direction, those begin to take root. They aren't magic. They're mental habits. And like any habit, they grow with practice. Inner dialogue is the most private space you have. No one else hears it. But you do. Constantly. And if you let it go untrained, it can quietly become your biggest critic. But if you shape it with care, it becomes your most powerful ally. You are not obligated to believe the voice in your head. But you are responsible for how you respond to it. And with intention, you can teach it a new language, one that lifts, not limits. Because your inner voice is not just commentary. It's construction. Inner dialogue shapes emotion, action, and belief more than we realize. It can be rewritten through awareness, repetition, and curiosity. What you say to yourself silently becomes what you live outwardly. What tone does your inner voice usually take, and would you speak to someone else that way? Pick one recurring negative phrase you say to yourself. Replace it with a new statement. Say it aloud 3 times today, even if you don't fully believe it yet. Chapter 8. Belief is a mental filter, not a fact. Beliefs feel like facts. That's what makes them powerful and dangerous. Once you believe something about yourself, the world, or others, your mind starts collecting evidence to support it. Not because it's true, but because it wants to be consistent. This is how the mind works. It filters reality to match what it already assumes. You believe you're not good with people, so you remember every awkward moment and forget the warm conversations. You believe money is hard to come by, so you ignore opportunity and see only scarcity. You believe you're not creative, so you don't try, and the lack of effort becomes proof. Belief doesn't just color perception, it builds momentum. Once you've repeated a belief enough times, your brain treats it as law. And like any law, it becomes invisible until questioned. But beliefs aren't laws. They're stories. And stories can be revised. Every belief starts as a sentence. A conclusion. Sometimes spoken by someone else. Sometimes formed during a vulnerable moment. A teacher once said you weren't a leader. A parent once praised your sibling's discipline but never yours. A failure at something important sealed the thought, I'm not enough. And that one sentence, left unchallenged, becomes a lens. You don't see the lens. You see through it. That's why belief work is so critical to mental mastery. If you don't examine what you believe, you'll mistake the filter for reality. You'll live inside an echo chamber, where your fears are reflected back to you in every experience. Challenging a belief doesn't mean pretending it never formed. It means testing it like a scientist. Asking, what evidence supports this? What contradicts it? Where did it come from? Does it serve who I'm becoming? Sometimes the answers are surprising. You realize you adopted someone else's fear. Or that the belief was true once, but isn't anymore. Or that it only feels true because you've never tried anything different. Changing belief starts with disrupting certainty. Not replacing it instantly, but opening a crack. You don't have to flip a negative belief into its opposite. You just have to make it flexible. Instead of I always fail, try sometimes I struggle, but I'm still learning. Instead of I'm just not a disciplined person, try discipline is a skill I can train. These aren't affirmations, they're mental upgrades. They open a new pathway where growth becomes possible. Neuroscience supports this. The brain is built to rewire. When you change the story you tell yourself, and repeat it consistently, you create new neural pathways. Over time, they become your new default filter. Belief becomes biology. This is not about blind positivity. It's about honest authority. It's about reclaiming the power to shape your inner world instead of accepting it as is. A belief unchecked is a belief obeyed. But a belief examined becomes a belief you choose or discard. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to outgrow old beliefs, even if they were taught by people you love. Especially then. Because your life should reflect who you're becoming, not just where you've been. Your beliefs are not bricks. They're clay. And you are the sculptor. The question isn't whether you have beliefs. The question is whether they're building the life you want, or blocking it. Beliefs are not facts, they're filters shaped by repetition and emotion. You can challenge and revise beliefs like hypotheses. New beliefs, practiced over time, rewire perception and possibility. What's one belief you've accepted as truth that might actually be a story? Write down one limiting belief you carry. Beneath it, write one sentence that opens possibility instead. Speak it aloud today 3 times. Let the new lens begin to form. Chapter 9. Identity is a loop you can rewrite. The mind doesn't just think thoughts. It builds identities. Every repeated belief, reaction, and behavior becomes a signal that says, this is who I am. And the more often you send that signal, the more solid it feels. But identity isn't set in stone. It's a loop. And loops can be rewritten. Most people think identity is something they discover. But for most, it's something they've constructed unconsciously. Over time, they attach to labels: quiet, anxious, lazy, disorganized, too much, not enough, and those labels start to shape behavior. Then the behavior reinforces the label. It becomes a loop. Belief drives action, action confirms belief. Say someone believes they're bad with commitment. That belief shapes their behavior. They pull away early, avoid long-term planning, hesitate at the edge of responsibility. Then, when something falls through, it feels like confirmation. See? I knew I wasn't built for this. But that outcome wasn't destiny, it was rehearsed. The loop continues until one thing changes: awareness. When you start noticing that identity is not a truth, but a pattern, you gain power. You can step outside of it. You can ask, is this who I really am, or who I've practiced being? This question cracks the foundation. And in that crack, something new can grow. You don't have to wait until you feel different to act differently. That's one of the most misunderstood ideas in personal growth. People think change begins in the mind. But often, it begins in motion. A new action, taken consistently, begins to send a new signal. That signal becomes the seed of a new belief. Over time, the loop flips. Someone who believes they're not focused can decide to sit down and read one page of a book. Not 10. Not 50. 1. That small act, repeated daily, starts to whisper a different story. Maybe I can focus. Maybe I'm becoming someone who does what they say they will. The behavior precedes the belief. And soon, the belief catches up. Neuroscience calls this self-directed neuroplasticity. Your brain is wired to notice patterns and build identity from them. The good news is you can choose which patterns to repeat. You can stop waiting for confidence and start acting with intention. Action rewires identity. This isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about returning to who you were before the old scripts settled in. It's about choosing identity instead of inheriting it. And it begins with a simple shift: act as the person you want to become, not the one you've been rehearsing. That doesn't mean faking. It means practicing. The same way you would rehearse a new skill, you rehearse a new self. Not with pressure, but with presence. With awareness that every small decision is a vote for the future version of you. You are not bound to the identity you've repeated. It's familiar, not final. You can move from I'm not disciplined to I'm building discipline. From I'm always overwhelmed to I'm learning to handle more with clarity. These aren't lies. They're choices. And with enough repetition, they become reality. The loop is always running. The only question is, which direction is it spinning? Identity is a loop built from repeated thoughts and actions. Small, consistent behaviors can shift the loop and rewrite self-perception. You don't become someone new by waiting, you become it by practicing. What part of your identity have you accepted as permanent, but might actually be a rehearsed pattern? Choose one behavior that aligns with the identity you want to build. Do it today, no matter how small, and repeat it tomorrow. Chapter 10. Mental Mastery is Built in the Mundane. Most people think transformation happens in the big moments, in the breakthroughs, the sudden clarity, the emotional highs. But real mental mastery is not forged in the spotlight. It's built quietly, consistently, in the background of ordinary days. It's built when you pause before reacting to a rude comment. When you choose not to spiral after a stressful email. When you redirect your focus instead of scrolling mindlessly. When you notice a self-critical thought and meet it with curiosity instead of judgment. These small, nearly invisible choices create the architecture of a resilient mind. The mundane moments are not distractions from growth. They are the training ground. The brain changes through repetition, not intensity. It doesn't care how inspired you felt once, it cares what you practice repeatedly. That's how habits form, and identity follows. If you wait for perfect conditions or dramatic breakthroughs, you'll miss the dozens of opportunities each day to train your mind where it matters most, in real life. Consider how muscle is built. You don't get strong by lifting something once with perfect form. You get strong by showing up day after day, often when it's boring, often when it's hard. You train when you feel like it, and especially when you don't. That's where the shift happens. Mental strength is the same. You build it by choosing presence when distraction is easier. By slowing your breathing when stress spikes. By speaking to yourself with respect even when you fall short. Each act is a rep. Each rep is a vote. Each vote shapes who you're becoming. The problem is that these moments feel too small to matter. The thought says this won't make a difference. But that thought is a lie. Because your life is not built from grand gestures, it's built from the average of your repeated choices. And if those choices lean toward awareness, intention, and discipline, your life will, too. The danger is in dismissing the mundane, skipping the pause, letting the negative thoughts slide by unchecked, telling yourself it's just one time. That's how the old self stays in power, not through dramatic sabotage, but through subtle autopilot. You break that autopilot by honoring the ordinary, by remembering that every reaction is a rehearsal. Every choice, no matter how minor, is a step in a direction. You don't need a loud transformation. You need quiet consistency. This is why many people stay stuck. They keep waiting to feel different before they act different. But mastery doesn't begin with a new feeling, it begins with a new rhythm. And rhythm is established in the middle of life's noise, not outside of it. You can train your mind while folding laundry, while sitting in traffic, while walking through a grocery store. You can observe your thoughts, adjust your focus, regulate your breath, speak a new sentence inside your head. These are the real reps, not glamorous, but foundational. Mastery isn't a final destination. It's a posture, a way of showing up, a way of relating to your thoughts with ownership instead of obedience. And it's built slowly, consistently, quietly. The people who seem calm, grounded, mentally strong, they didn't arrive there by accident. They trained in the mundane. They did the invisible work when no one was watching. You can too. Because mental mastery isn't what you do once. It's what you do daily. Mental mastery is built through repeated choices and ordinary moments. Small decisions compound into powerful patterns over time. The mundane is not a detour from growth, it's the place growth happens. Where in your daily life do you overlook small moments that could be opportunities to train your mind? Choose one mundane task today, washing dishes, commuting, brushing your teeth, and practice full awareness as you do it. Let it become your mental rep. Chapter 11: Ownership is the beginning of freedom. You can't control every thought that enters your mind. But you can control what stays, what grows, and what defines you. That's the difference between reaction and responsibility. And that difference is everything. Mental freedom isn't about perfection. It's about ownership. It's the quiet confidence that says, I may not have chosen this thought, but I get to choose what comes next. That moment, the moment you take the reins, is where transformation begins. The world will keep spinning. Life will throw challenges, delays, discomfort, and noise. But when your inner world is grounded, the chaos doesn't decide your course. You do. And ownership is how that grounding begins. Ownership is not blame. It's not shame. It's not self-punishment for thoughts you didn't ask for or feelings you didn't expect. Ownership is the radical act of saying, this is my mind. These are my thoughts. And I lead them. It's the decision to stop living on mental autopilot and start becoming the author of your responses, your habits, and your identity. This is not a one-time decision. It's a lifestyle. Ownership means showing up daily to practice, to notice, to pause, to choose. Some days you'll miss the mark. That's part of the work. The win is in returning. The win is in the next breath, the next thought, the next choice. People talk about confidence as if it's a trait. But true confidence is earned. It comes from watching yourself follow through, on the micro scale, in the quiet moments. Confidence grows when you realize you don't have to obey every fear, every impulse, every script. You can observe, decide, and redirect. That's not theory. That's power. Owning your thoughts doesn't mean they won't try to run wild. It means they don't run the show. You stop giving the loudest thought the microphone. You stop letting old beliefs make new decisions. You stop being a passenger in your own mind. This shift isn't loud. It's subtle. But it's permanent. When you take ownership, you begin to walk differently. You speak differently. You listen more closely to what you're rehearsing internally. You carry yourself not with arrogance, but with authority. Quiet, focused, clear. Because you know what's yours to lead. Everything you've read in these pages points to this. You are not the storm, you are the sky behind it. You are not your loops, you are the one breaking them. You are not your old identity, you are the one reshaping it. And you are not your thoughts. You are the thinker. Ownership is the beginning of freedom. Not because it gives you control over life, but because it gives you control over your inner response to life. And in that space, between reaction and intention, you reclaim your greatest power. That's the work. That's the path. Not easy. Not instant. But available, always. And now, it's yours to walk. Ownership of your thoughts is not about control, it's about leadership. Freedom begins with choosing your response, not reacting by default. Daily practice builds confidence, clarity, and inner authority. What would change in your life if you fully owned your thoughts instead of obeying them? Today, when a thought challenges your peace, pause and say out loud, I choose how this ends. Then choose a response that reflects who you're becoming. Take care and be well.